people are worried about these new, this new intruder, this new invasion, this invasive species, man, that's been ruining our day here at Hot News Talk Radio. We've had a problem with them actually flying in the window, and Eric Judd from the Eric Judd Show, he actually had a problem with this drone flew in. Now, he operates a drone, so I figured he'd be pretty good at taming them, but that's actually not the case. This drone flew in, and we had to, get out the broom, we had to sweep it out the window. Gosh, drones just get everywhere. You got to deal with it, man. And one way that we should have dealt with it, honestly, in the first place is because, I don't want to kill one. I want to just let it go. Because when a drone flies in, I feel like I just don't want to kill the thing. It's like spiders. You know that they serve a good purpose, so you don't really want to just kill them. So that's kind of how we feel about drones. And we were trying to get the thing out the window. We're swapping. That's not a word. Swapping, perhaps. We're just swatting it with this broom, and finally we got rid of it. It was a DJI Phantom 3, by the way. And we actually should have just gone the lethal method. Unfortunately, there's a new shotgun shell that's designed exactly for that. So Tech Malik has a story, a shotgun ammo that's designed for the drone apocalypse, which is swiftly coming upon us because we've had to deal with these drones actually quite a bit just in recent history. So unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, as they've started to call them, have become increasingly popular, and we're seeing more of them in the news every day. And there are some who can't stand to have their privacy invaded by these drones. And now there's a new type of ammunition for those who are looking to take aim in the name of self-defense. Although I don't really see drones as being a weaponized sort of thing yet, anyway, for the civilian market. I mean, definitely, yeah, for the military market where drones are designed exclusively for killing people. But that's not so much the case with the civilian market. These shotgun shells are specifically designed and marketed to shoot down drones without mercy at a moment's notice. The name given to this ammunition is dubbed drone munition. That's a hard one to say. Drone munition. Drone munition is being sold by Snake River Shooting Products, which is an Idaho-based ammunition manufacturer. So according to the report, which also comes from RT, these shells are 3-inch shells. They're full of number 2 steel shot and about 1.5 inches in diameter. So yeah, if you want a drone that's trying to come at you, you got a drone that's flying at you, and you want to get rid of it, you can shoot it down with this number 2 steel shot that's specifically designed for taking down drones. It's called drone munition. So there are some pretty mixed feelings about drones out in the wild, and they can be used to spy upon people undomestically or unsuspectingly, I should say, by someone from a distance who has no regard for other people's privacy. Now, I've actually managed to domesticate a drone. I have one that I usually keep in my backyard. It's got its propellers clipped, so it really can't go very far. But we're thinking about actually getting one or two more, so that we can breed them, and then we'll have a little bit of a drone farm, and then we can sell them then and make quite a bit of money, because drones are going for quite a bit of money these days. So our drone farm, we're hoping, is going to go pretty well. Not really selling like hotcakes, but at least we're going to turn a profit on our drone farm. So yeah, obviously the ones that we have just gotten, they've had the propellers clipped, but we can train the younger ones to not try to fly away. The design in the package above that they show on Tech Malik, and I'll describe it a little bit. It shows a drone. It looks like a very friendly drone, but unfortunately it's being shot at. It's being fired upon. This drone is actually exploding slightly, which I don't think would happen unless the battery pack got ruptured, and there's smoke just billowing off of this drone. The package is designed for those who are looking to shoot down drones, and it says, with the slogan, I'm serious, the slogan is "Prepare for the drone apocalypse." So if you're worried about the drone apocalypse, you can get drone ammunition, and you can fire down, fire hellfire upon these drones. The folks over at Drone Munition don't despise UAVs. In fact, they actually mentioned that they are responsible drone owners themselves. So they're sort of self-hating drone owners. They recognize that the greatest threat to their hobby are those who use these flying machines in a reckless way, posing a threat to public privacy. Not only are these shells suitable for taking out UAVs, they're also fit to hunt small game, such as waterfowl and turkeys, according to the website. So essentially, it's really expensive, kind of overpriced turkey shot, or bird shot, I guess. I don't think there is specific turkey shot, but whatever. It's just bird shot that they've repackaged with a drone on the cover to make it look kind of cool. But anyway, before anyone goes out to purchase these shotgun shells, it's best to understand the laws governing shooting down drones which are not yours, because it is actually a federal crime to do so. Snake River Shooting Products has a little disclaimer which says as follows: disclaimer. Federal, state, and local laws dictate when, where, and in what situations a firearm can be legally discharged. We are in no way condoning the use of this product for illegal activity. Be sure to follow all firearm laws at all times. So if you do not want to follow all firearm laws at all times and you want to just shoot down a drone, be sure to recognize that you're going to be facing quite a bit of legal problems. You'll be facing some legal trouble there when it comes to shooting down drones. So don't do that willy-nilly. Don't be shooting at stuff all willy-nilly, because then you might get in a tad bit of trouble there when it comes right down to it. And something that has to be recognized too is that drones are not, they are not bad in and of themselves, right? Like a drone is not a bad thing in and of itself. A drone is simply a tool, and people have become sort of afraid of these tools, unfortunately. Like, I'm afraid of the band Tool. I get very worried when my friend puts it on, but nevertheless, drones are just tools. That's all they are. There's nothing more to it. It's like a screwdriver. I can stab you in the neck and kill you with a screwdriver, or I can build a church with it. Well, not just with the screwdriver, but I can help to build at least part of the church with the screwdriver. You get what I'm saying, though. It's only a tool. So there's no need to get all worried about, the drones are going to come and kill us all, But drones are operated by a human, unless you have one of those automated ones, which actually aren't, I don't think, particularly legal to fly right now long distance, because the drone has to be line of sight. Anyway, that's the law right now governing drones, is when you're flying them, they have to be within your line of sight. Now, I don't know if you're suddenly breaking federal law if a drone flies behind a telephone pole and you can't see it momentarily. Have you violated FAA regulations? I don't know. The FAA is famously vague on some of these drone regulations. So, oh well. Now, I happen to know of a company which flies drones professionally, Sky Aerial Services, very, very good company. I happen to know one of the guys who works there, very nice guy, very funny guy, and he's told me a little bit about flying drones, and there's so many laws and so many requirements behind flying these drones. It's not like somebody can just pick one up and immediately know how to fly one. There is a learning curve there. It's not the easiest thing in the world to pull off. So it's a lot of people sort of have a misconception about drones where they think that, some kid can fly a drone into my house and blow it up with C4. And I think people possibly also have sort of a narcissistic view on how society works, where they think that they themselves will be targeted. It's kind of like identity theft, where people think I myself will be targeted because why not, really? Sort of a narcissistic view. Kind of like the FBI is after me personally because I'm a conservative. That's most likely not true, that the FBI would be after you specifically. Now, it may be after an ideology specifically, but not after an individual specifically, unless you've done something criminally that's going to put you on the radar. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. Hydrogen has been something that we've been hearing a little bit about pretty recently, and going far back, maybe 10 years or so too, we heard about hydrogen as a potential power source. Power fuel cells was a big thing that we kept hearing about, and we're still hearing about hydrogen fuel cells. Now, something that somebody pointed out about hydrogen fuel cells that I thought was actually quite interesting was the fact that they are not that great in and of themselves. Hydrogen fuel cells are a cool idea, but they are inefficient. It takes power to make hydrogen from water, so that's something that has to be understood immediately. And plus, it's going to take more energy to create this hydrogen, possibly than the hydrogen can actually put out. So it's a little bit wonky there in terms of efficiency. So let's just assume that we can make hydrogen somehow. We have hydrogen now somehow. Not sure how it's supposed to work. And what happens is, generally speaking, you're creating hydrogen for your hydrogen fuel cell, say for your car, through a process called electrolysis. So what happens is you pour water into this machine and it generates hydrogen and it generates oxygen. Now, it's not just magically making that appear when you pour water into it, because what is water? H2O, right? So 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Quite simple. So what happens then is you're basically, anyway, you're separating the oxygen from the hydrogen through the use of electric current. And so the oxygen is discarded. You don't need that anymore. And the hydrogen is then put back into your car, or put into your car. It was never there in the first place. And then you use it as fuel. And what comes out of the car as the form of exhaust is water. So pretty clean, right? That's a pretty clean method of doing things. Well, what about smaller electronics? Why don't we use hydrogen to power smaller electronics? After all, hydrogen can power basically anything you throw at it, right? I mean, sure. Well, a British firm called Intelligent Energy has actually demonstrated a new iPhone fuel cell that integrated seamlessly into the existing chassis and can be reportedly run for up to a week. So an iPhone 6 could reportedly be run for about a week on this hydrogen battery. The manufacturer would not directly confirm that it worked directly with Apple to develop this fuel cell infrastructure for the company's products, but reporters claim to have glimpsed the prototype MacBook Air and iPhone devices. So, Extreme Tech, which is where this story comes from, says that you can already get various fuel cell chargers that combine lithium-ion batteries and their own internal hardware. But what Internal Energy has worked on is supposedly quite different. The Telegraph reports that the company's fuel cell technology can be integrated into an iPhone without any visible changes to the device, and save for some additional vents that discharge water vapor. So the total iPhone charge time is 1 week. Not that it takes a week to charge the iPhone, no, but the battery lasts for roughly a week. And on an iPhone, that's pretty impressive because iPhones do not have the best battery life by any means. I use a Motorola Moto G right now. That's my current phone. It's the brand new one, the one that came out this month. And wait, is it still August? Yeah, the one that came out this month. And I love it. I mean, it's amazing. It's a great phone. I can't say enough good things about it. The problem, though, is a lot of people, unfortunately, don't get that experience, especially when we're talking about higher-end phones, because a lot of the time when you're using, say, an iPhone, battery life is something that everyone has to worry about. We're always worrying about, oh, I have to charge my phone, I have to do this, I have to do that. It's really obnoxious, but that's how it is with iPhones. iPhones do not handle batteries very well at all. So the even concept of being able to use a iPhone for more than a week is kind of an amazing new topic. It's an amazing new concept, I should say. Now, don't be duped, because a lot of the time, and I watched a really, really good video on this from Linus Tech Tips. If you're into, probably if you're into computers, you already watched Linus Tech Tips. But if you are into computers and you want to watch a really good review show, unboxing show, what have you, Linus Tech Tips on YouTube is really, really good. Now, he did a video on a hydrogen power generator thing, and it didn't really work at all very well, in the sense that it barely worked at all. He plugged in an HTC One, I believe was the phone, into this device, and it didn't even recognize that there was a charge there. It recognized that there was something plugged in, but it didn't say that there was any current coming through it. And the iPhone, or rather iPad that he plugged into it, didn't even say that there was enough charge to charge it. So a lot of these hydrogen charging devices that you see on the market are not nearly as good as they tout themselves to be. Like they'll say, "Ooh, it can do, it's the equivalent of 6 AAA batteries," and you think, or 6 AA batteries, and you think, "Oh, that's so good," but it actually doesn't work that well at all. That's under peak efficiency at some temperature, at some height, and all these different. Don't bother with hydrogen chargers right now. It's just not worth it. You'd be much better off buying a lithium-ion battery pack. Just trust me on that one. Anyway, the current iteration of Intelligent Energy's hardware, again, we're talking about an iPhone that can potentially be charged for up to a week. I mean, stay charged for about a week. The current iteration of Intelligent Energy's hardware reportedly refuels the hydrogen fuel cell via the headphone jack. There's no information on if the headphone jack can actually still be used for, headphones at that point. We don't know that, but there are multiple questions about how such a system would work in deployment. Intelligent Energy wants to license its technology, not product kits wholesale, or produce kits wholesale, I should say, which means that a phone manufacturer like Apple would need to take a substantial upfront cost and then integrate the technology into its new handset. Doing so would mean the device would have to be tested in a number of scenarios to ensure that the fuel cell doesn't rupture or that the vents don't become obstructed when the phone is slipped into various pockets or purses or any other sort of device such as that. Or any other such configuration such as that. So say you have this hydrogen fuel cell that has to vent water, and then you put that fuel cell in your pocket, and either you burn your hip, which would be very bad, or it vents out of the pocket and works just fine, or you get in a very embarrassing wet spot on your pants, thanks to this iPhone that's venting water all the time. So as it is now, hydrogen power is sort of a infant technology, especially when we're talking about small electronics. I've not heard of any small electronic device that is solely powered by hydrogen so far. Or at least I should say solely powered by hydrogen fuel cells that then convert hydrogen into electricity. It's not powered by hydrogen. Anyway. So I have not heard of any sort of small electronic that's powered by hydrogen, is the point. As of right now, you can't just go and buy an iPhone that will recharge via hydrogen. You can't even buy an Android phone that charges via hydrogen, unfortunately. So it's an infant concept, but still a rather interesting one, and I can't wait to see what comes out of that. So what's going to happen with hydrogen charging? Is it going to replace lithium-ion as the go-to source for power? I kind of doubt it right now. Lithium-ion is sort of tried and true. But if hydrogen can prove itself to be cheaper, now that's the big thing. If hydrogen is cheaper than lithium ion, that's going to be the deciding factor. Think about Betamax versus VHS. Betamax was technically superior, but VHS was cheaper. So we went with VHS, and that's the big whole debate. And there's DVD versus what was it? X-Video, I think, was the other one. There's Xvid discs or something, and then there was the current Blu-ray versus HD DVD. And some people said HD DVDs were better. Some people said Blu-rays are better. Whole long thing. We don't need to get into that. But the bottom line is, if it's cheaper, manufacturers are more likely to use it. So if this hydrogen process is cheaper than just putting in a lithium-ion battery, then we may actually see hydrogen power in our phones sometime soon. So who knows? I mean, I never would have thought that I'd say that we may have hydrogen-powered phones, but we live in strange times, man. We live in the future. That's something that needs to be understood, is that we live in the future. If you grew up in the 1980s, this is the future. You know what I mean? If you grew up in the 1970s and 1980s and you're looking at what technology is going to be like sometime in the future, you're here, man. This is the future. Things are nuts and things are crazy. Speaking of crazy, if you see what happens with the stock market, things are not going so well, or at least haven't been going so well. Now, I've been hearing tell that this is not the worst of it, and I've heard, anyway, that the bad stuff is going to be happening in September, next month. So that's what I've been hearing, anyway, because it's, from what I hear, it's a 7-year cycle. So every 7 years, there's a pretty bad thing that happens. And from what I hear, again, this is speculation, September is going to be the big one. But again, that's speculation. You can't really accurately predict what's going to happen on Wall Street. You just can't. You can pretty well predict human behavior in a lot of ways, but you can't just predict what's going to happen on Wall Street. So it could be September, it could be never, it could be tomorrow, who knows? And that's kind of the big problem. One of the big problems that I have with the stock market is that it's so fickle and it's so just ludicrous that I don't know why anyone even bothers with it. And it makes me wonder if people in my generation moving forward are going to be bothering with the stock market at all. Because I notice a lot of the traders that we see, and I'm saying Traders, not traitors, traders, not Benedict Arnold. I'm talking about, Blackbeard type, traders. I haven't seen a whole lot of people in my generation be stock market traders so far. Now, I know a lot are, but I haven't seen a whole lot. So I don't know if that's just indicative of the circles that I hang out in who have no faith at all in the stock market, or if that's just some weird thing that I don't know anybody, you know what I mean? But it could be indicative of a trend where people just don't trust the stock market. After all, a lot of us grew up during the 2008, 2009 stock market crash. So a lot of us are distrustful of the stock market in general. Our parents lost a ton of money when the stock market crashed. So a lot of us just don't trust it anymore. So we'll have to see if my generation is going to get into it. But I would recommend staying right the heck out of the stock market, because I'm sure I'm not going to touch that. That's just, no, that's too out there for me. If I want to make a safe investment, there's really no such thing. But if I want to make it, there's no such thing as a safe bet. You see what I mean? But if I'm going to make an investment, it's going to be in a local business, not in a stock market thing. That's just too out there. The local economy is much more stable. And plus, you can actually go in and have a connection with the people you're investing in. You can go in and talk to them, say, hey, how's business going? Can I help you out with anything? You can't really do that when we're talking about, say, you've put some money in Google, right? Or Alphabet, pardon. You can't really do that when we're talking about Apple. You can't just go over and say hi to Tim Cook and say, hey, how are things going over at Apple? Man, I'd really like to get a tour. Can't really do that. But say you invest in a local tech company, you can actually go over there and say, hey, how are things going? I'd love to see how you're working. How's this new technology you're working on going? Or, oh, you got some new software. Can we check that out? You can do that with a local economy, with a local business. You really can't do that with a national business, because they're not going to take you seriously. Like, oh, what? You own $200 in Apple stock. Big whoop is what they're going to say. There's thousands of people just like you, is what they'll say. But if we're talking about a local business, they're going to be much more likely to actually let you walk around and let you see the business and see how things go. And you'll feel much more connected. And that feeling of connection, actually, believe it or not, psychologically can help succeed. Because positivity can help businesses succeed in ways that we don't even think about. We don't think about positivity being a factor in success, but it really is. If you feel good about your job, you're much more likely to do well in that job. I'd rather have a very happy accountant than a chronically or clinically depressed accountant. You see what I mean? Because a happy accountant is much more likely to do his job well, and a clinically depressed accountant is just going to slog through it like it's an everyday grind. And so feelings of success and feelings of positivity are actually a major factor in propelling yourself forward. Like, you see all these different business people who are very positive. They're just positive all the time, full of energy. And that's why, because that feeling of positivity can help you succeed. It sounds nuts, but that is actually how it works. This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. We're here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com. Check us out on the TuneIn app for your smartphone on Hot News Talk Radio.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing about my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Joe Chiarl. The Dow surging about 400 points after yesterday's big sell-off.
Happy to see the update after a couple of volatile days here. I think a lot of investors are. The type of negative sentiment that we had at the end of last week that you saw in the markets yesterday, that doesn't evaporate overnight.
Financial advisor Anthony Valeri, a French prosecutor, says a man who staged a train attack last week had watched a jihadi video just before the incident. The formal investigation opening today. A reward in connection with the Ashley Madison attack.
Hackers releasing personal information on the site's more than 30 million users last week. Emails from parent company Avid Life Media's CEO also made public. The Toronto-based organization now offering a $500,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest of those responsible.
Fox's David Lee Miller. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Looking and feeling great out there through the afternoon with lots of sunshine. A breezy north wind will give us highs 80 to 82. Tonight, clear, comfortably cool again, lows into the upper 50s. For the midweek, more nice weather, lots of sunshine, highs lower 80s, lows near 60. This forecast is brought to you by State Farm Insurance, specializing in auto, home, life, and banking. To find an agent or to get a quote now, their website, statefarm.com. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward.
On AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
So right now, it's totally legal and totally fine to buy or build a flamethrower. And that sounds fine to me. No, I'm serious. That sounds absolutely fine to me. You should be able to buy a flamethrower and use a flamethrower, build a flamethrower, buy a flamethrower if you want to, so long as you don't hurt anybody else. That's the thing. That's the big kicker. So long as you don't hurt anybody else. See, people put way too much stock in, well, both the stock market and the idea that an object can be inherently bad. Objects cannot be inherently bad. We can talk all day about how the nuclear bomb may be inherently bad. Sure, that's maybe an exception, possibly, maybe, but I don't think so. Anyway, we can talk about objects being bad all day, but we can probably come to the conclusion that an object in and of itself doesn't cause any harm. It's the human behind it that causes the actual harm. You know, see, like I can hold a gun. The gun's not doing anything. And I'm a safe, responsible gun owner. I'm not holding a gun right now. I'm just twisting my hand around in front of the webcam to make it look like I'm doing very funny hand movements right now to display my my handgun prowess. By the way, if you want to watch us on YouTube, you can go to YouTube and search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can see the live stream. It's streaming right now live on Hot News Talk Radio. You can see me waving my hands around like a lunatic, pretending to have a handgun. And I think the people in the parking lot think that I'm trying to rob myself. But anyway, I'm trying to rob my own business. Get on the floor, everybody. Give me your wallets. You know me very well. Don't call the police. No, but I see no problem with owning a flamethrower so long as you don't harm anyone else or anyone else's property. Who cares, man? So in the wake of two companies now selling the first commercially available flamethrower in the United States, at least one mayor, as a mayor, so who cares, but at least one mayor has called for an increased restriction on their use. And to no one's surprise, this prospect of prohibition has now driven up sales. Hooray! Business is skyrocketing higher than ever due to the discussion of prohibition, says Chris Byers, the CEO of Ion Productions team based in Troy, Michigan. That's what he says to Ars Technica via an email, saying, I'm a huge supporter of personal freedom and personal responsibility. Own whatever you like unless you see it in a manner that, or use it in a manner that's harmful to another or other's property. We received a large amount of support from police, fire, our customers, and interested parties regarding keeping them legal. So you can actually legally own a flamethrower with no problem whatsoever right now in the United States. And this whole debate leads to an interesting discussion. Have you seen anyone die from a flamethrower? You know, do you know anyone who was a victim of flamethrower violence? If so, please call in 423-800-8949. I'd love to hear your reasons for why flamethrowers should not be legal. But as of right now, flamethrower violence on the rise. One person died in North Dakota. You know, I mean, you don't really hear about that at all. It's just flamethrowers are a thing that are actually prohibitively expensive already. Some hobbyists are buying them and using them and are not hurting anyone with them really at all. And if they do, then there's, you know, crimes against hurting people. You see, it's already illegal to hurt somebody. I can't just walk up to you and punch you in the head and then everyone jumps on that and says, hands now illegal. Learning martial arts now a crime in 3 states. You know, will your state be the next? You're on the wrong side of history if you think that hands should not be criminalized in some way. You see how silly that is? It doesn't make any sense. The same goes for different items, right? Where handguns are the chief example, where in a lot of different countries, handguns are for some odd reason illegal to own. And really the handgun is not the problem, it's psyche. That's the problem. People wanting to be violent. That's the problem. Or people just acting out in a violent way. Perhaps culture and society is the problem, not the actual item. I know it's crazy to think about. I know, and most of the, you know, so-called gun nuts that I own, who own tons and tons and tons of weapons, never want to hurt anyone. They're the most chill, peaceful people I know. I know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who have concealed carry license or concealed carry weapons permits, and there's probably others I don't even know about, and that's cool because I don't need to know. I don't care. You carry a gun, so? Oh, you carried a gun into my house, don't shoot me. Like, we know each other, big deal. You know, it's not something that I'm really worried about, and I think we have that benefit here in the South. You see, that's something that has to be kept in mind is we're in the South. And in our Chattanooga area, we're just used to people having guns. You know, like I see people who have guns all the time. I grew up here. It's just a fact of life. People carry guns. People own guns. It's the South. So it's just something that happens. And I'm not really worried about it. You know, as a Chattanoogan, or at least as a resident of the greater Chattanooga metropolitan area, because I live in Georgia. But as a resident of that greater metropolitan area, am I worried about the increased purchase of handguns and concealed carry weapons permits in Tennessee? No, I'm not. And I'm even less worried about the lack of requirements for getting a concealed carry weapons permit in Georgia, because you have a right to bear arms. You have a right to own that particular item and to carry that particular item as well. You have a right to bear it, not just to keep it in your house, right? Like, you can keep it in your house, but you can't like carry it around bearing it. You have a right to own arms. You don't have a right to bear them. Keep that in mind. It makes no sense. So I'm not worried about the rise of flamethrower purchases, and I'm not worried about the rise of handgun purchases. I'm not worried about the rise of people having concealed carry weapons permits either. It's not anything that I'm worried about. It seems really silly to me to worry about anything of that regard. That's just, who cares, man? Big deal. Big whoop. Well, something that has been popping up is, of course, the manufacture of weapons, and that's where things start to get kind of techy, is the manufacture of weapons in one's own home. So from a tech perspective, what are the ramifications for this? Well, we can see already that there are people who are 3D printing AR-15 lowers in their homes. Now, a little bit, just a smidge, just a tad, just a drop, a dollop of info on AR-15s. There are two main parts of the AR-15 that are required for it to function. I mean, every part of the AR-15 is required for it to function, but there are two big parts that you absolutely have to have. Like, you can fire, I think, once without a buffer tube or a buffer spring. You have to fire it like a bolt-action rifle, but you can fire it without a buffer tube, just as an example. So some parts are not necessarily needed for the action of the rifle, but you would want them. So there are two main parts anyway, the upper receiver and the lower receiver. And the upper receiver will actually, if you take one pin out, hinges off the lower receiver so you can service the gun. So you can see the action, you can look down the barrel from your perspective, not looking up into the barrel, because that's a horrible idea. But you can look down the bore and see if there's any bore obstructions. You can look at the magazine to see the feed lips are okay. All sorts of different reasons why you would want to open up your gun. Now, those are the two receivers. The upper receiver generally has a barrel. I think that might actually be part of it. That has the bolt and carrier assembly, all that good stuff. Again, getting overly technical. The AR-15 lower, though, is the part that matters. Technically, legally anyway. The AR-15 lower is the part that actually counts as the gun. The AR-15 lower is the part that the ATF has determined arbitrarily is the actual weapon. The AR-15 upper is not a gun. It's a gun component, yeah, but gun components are not regulated, at least not in our states, not in Georgia, Tennessee, or Alabama, as far as I know. So say I'm 15, I can buy an AR-15 upper and have it shipped to my door, no problem. You can just do that, and it's fine. There's no restriction on that, and there shouldn't be. AR-15 lowers, on the other hand, just like you can't just buy a handgun and have it shipped to your door like you can in Canada, you can have you can't really have an AR-15 lower just shipped to your door. It unfortunately doesn't work that way, unless you get a Curios or Relics license or an FFL. But again, getting overly complicated. So the basic principle that we must understand is that the lower is the part that counts as the gun. And this is generally made out of aluminum, steel, or polymer. The polymer ones are a little bit less popular because some people see them as more flimsy. I don't know, because I haven't fired one. I've only fired aluminum. Aircraft-grade aluminum is what they always want to tout it as. It's aircraft-grade aluminum, which makes it a little bit better than that pig aluminum that they tend to use. Anyway, so the AR-15 lower is what counts as the gun. I think I've said that about 8 times now. So hopefully we get it. So the AR-15 lower doesn't really take a whole lot of impact. It's not really a high-stress part of the gun. It does take stress, but it doesn't take the full brunt of the recoil like the upper does, like your shoulder does. So that has to be kept in mind. So the lower, Cody Wilson figured out, who's the founder of Defense Distributed, he figured out you could actually technically 3D print an AR-15 lower on a 3D printer. And now you own and have manufactured by the ATF standards a gun. And there's no problem with that because, again, in the United States, it's not a crime to manufacture a gun. Oh, not yet anyway, I should say. It's not a crime to manufacture a gun because it's been ruled that it would be a violation of your Second Amendment rights to restrict your right to manufacture a firearm. So you can manufacture a firearm. If you've ever heard of the BSP, the British Standard Pipe Gun, it's actually, seriously, it's a submachine gun that you can build out of pipes. An anarchist designed it. Very cool. The Sten gun can be built from a parts kit. You can build an AK parts kit. Again, you can actually build a semi-automatic AK-47 out of parts, and you can have the parts kit shipped to your door. It's not hard. There's all sorts of different ways to build guns that are not difficult at all. So this is not a new concept. It's the application that's new and different and interesting. So the 3D printing of an AR-15 lower is a kind of a new, interesting, cool idea. Some people have gotten up in arms about that, unfortunately. and not up in bearing arms about this. Unfortunately, people have gotten very offended by the idea that you can 3D print a firearm. This is sort of part of the idea behind it, though. The 3D printing of the firearm is the ultimate political opposition to any sort of opposition to the Second Amendment, really, because you can have all these states that say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, but I can manufacture a gun in my house now. There you go. I can manufacture a gun in my house now, and there's really nothing that can be done about it. And that makes the politicians and the gun control guys and the Brady campaign advocates, that makes them all very worried. You know, the hipster down the street who's playing his guitar, he's playing Radiohead covers for 25 cents. He's very worried about this for some reason. So that's good, really. That's good that these people are worried about it, because who cares what they think anyway? And also, if they're worried about it, that's a tell already that they don't understand how freedom works. And I'm not really a like uber American pro everything. I'm going to come at you with my guns in my my McDonald's sponsored mobility scooter. I'm not like that, you know. Like I own guns, yeah. I fire guns, yes, but I'm not like all up in your face about it, because it's just something you do. It's not like I don't get all up in your face about what I eat. I don't get all up in your face about what guns I shoot. It's not, who cares? So it's the same sort of idea. I think if we treated guns mentally anyway, the same way as they do in Switzerland, we'd be a lot better off, where they are simply tools and that is it. And Glenn Beck, actually, and I'm not a huge fan, but Glenn Beck did a really, really good interview with Cody Wilson, who's the founder of Defense Distributed, which designed this AR-15 lower that you can print out on a 3D printer. He did a very good interview, and his reasons for why he did it are so great to me, because the reason why is just that. It's because we can. It's the ultimate political act. I'm going to play that for you now.
Is this guy a hero or a villain?
That's a good question.
What do you think you are?
I don't like the dichotomy, right? Who, you know, in whose conception, under what paradigm, you know? I'm just resisting. What am I resisting? I don't know. The collectivization of manufacture, the institutionalization of the human psyche. I'm not sure, but I can tell you one thing. This is a symbol of reversibility. They can never eradicate the gun from the earth.
I'm big into whys. Why do you do it?
I do it because I decided process isn't the way to preserve liberty. I don't believe in Romney. What does that mean? I don't believe in Romney versus Obama. You know, I believe in real politics. That's a real political act, giving you a magazine, telling you that will never be taken away. That wasn't true maybe 2 weeks ago. Now it's a fact of life. It's a fact of history. You know, that's real politics. That's radical equality. That's what I believe in.
Radical equality is what he believes in. And that's something that's so interesting to me, because now it is true. It's the great equalizer. As a lot of people described the 6-shooter back in the day. It is the great equalizer now, because anyone has the potential to own a firearm, and there's nothing that can be done about it. Like he says, that cannot be taken away. And that's a beautiful thing, because now freedom is easily accessible. Because a lot of the time we talk about our freedoms, and we talk about what freedom is, and we talk about, you know, all the different philosophical things, but really freedom should be something that's easily accessible, something that you can just go out and do and take without permission. Freedom, you know, it's a basic, just that's our idea of it. Like, I have a right to free speech, just like I can say something on Twitter that's totally outrageous, right? I have a right to free speech, and I have a right to bear arms. Like, I can go out and buy a firearm. It's easy. That's my right to bear arms. But this is taking it one step further, where now you can get a 3D printed magazine for your gun, or clip, as some people call them incorrectly. Get a 3D printed magazine for your gun, and you can get a 3D printed lower for your gun. You can just 3D print an entire gun at some point, and there are actually experimental 3D printed guns where that cannot be taken away from you. Now those files are on the internet. They exist forever. And it's just so amazing to me that that has happened. The FTC, the Fair Trade Commission, I think. The Fair Trade Commission says that you can actually sue companies, or rather the Fair Trade Commission can sue companies which have poor information security, says an appeals court. Now, this is, of course, highly relevant because of what's happened with Ashley Madison, where a lot of people's information got leaked out. Some people are saying, you know, who leaked this information? What is this organization which leaked all this information from Ashley Madison? Some people are saying that it's a disgruntled employee. That's always how it is. For some reason, everyone jumps on the disgruntled employee bandwagon. And that very well could be true. I don't like the word disgruntled, though, when they talk about employees, because it just seems silly to me. But anyway, on Monday, the Federal Appeals Court ruled that the Federal Trade Commission has the power to take action against companies that employ poor IT practices. So the ruling, which comes from the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, comes as part of a lawsuit between the FTC and Wyndham Worldwide Corporation, which manages a collection of hotels throughout the United States. In 2008 and 2009, Wyndham suffered 3 different breaches of its network, ultimately losing payment card information for more than 619,000 customers and causing $10.6 million in loss due to fraud. The FTC then sued Wyndham in 2012 for failing to protect its customers from hackers. And Wyndham countered by saying that it was a victim of the hack itself and should not be penalized by the FTC for this breach. So now that argument has been made null and void, where now it's being said that even if you are a victim or your company is a victim of hacking, if your customers have been victimized by this hacking, then you can be held liable for that, because I guess the customers had an expectation that you would keep their information secure. So it's an interesting concept. Whether or not that's fair or not, it's sort of up in the air right now. The Fair Trade Commission, or Federal Trade Commission, I should say, argued that taken together, Wyndham unreasonably and unnecessarily exposed consumers, I hate it when they use that word, consumers' personal data to unauthorized access and theft. Although the U.S. government has not mandated a level of necessary security for businesses to meet when they hold customer data, the FTC has been trying to push companies to invest in security. And in January, the FTC spoke to Ars Technica about tempering the ebullience surrounding the so-called Internet of Things. Recent hacks at big box retailers like Target and Home Depot, as well as the Ashley Madison breach, have added to the sense that information security is an anything goes state in the United States, according to Bloomberg. In February, the president's administration proposed empowering the FTC to require companies to abide by principles, including transparency on data collection activities, giving consumers the right to control personal information. In a statement that was made to Ars Technica, FTC Chairwoman Edith Ramirez wrote, "Today's Third Circuit Court of Appeals decision reaffirms the FTC's authority to hold companies accountable for failing to safeguard customer data. It is not only appropriate but critical that the FTC has the ability to take action on behalf of consumers, when companies fail to take reasonable steps to secure sensitive consumer information." Wyndham has not responded to Ars Technica's request for comment, unfortunately. Something that has to be kept in mind, too, is there is a massive data breach constantly ongoing. It's just not the hands of hackers which are pulling it off. It's actually our very own government which is pulling it off, which is something that wasn't really brought up in this FTC suit or FTC decision by the appeals court. Keep in mind, right now, your information is being looked at by the NSA. There's a high likelihood of that, actually. And that's just the unfortunate truth of it right now. That's the state that we live in. Whoa, bumped the microphone. That's the state that we live in here in the United States, where if you are on the internet, chances are you have been monitored, possibly not actively, but your information has been captured by the NSA. And that's not something that should be happening, but unfortunately is. And if you watched and I hate to bring this up, but if you watched the Republican, national debate, that big debate they had on Fox a few weeks ago, I watched bits of it. It was really boring to me. Nobody really said anything very interesting. It was just the journalists were stupid and the politicians were stupid too. So it's just nonsense to me. But one clip that I saw that I thought was very funny was the guy from New Jersey. Who's the guy who's the governor of New Jersey? Chris Christie, the big old guy. Chris Christie and Rand Paul were talking about security, right? Like particularly internet security. And Chris Christie's argument for this mass surveillance stuff was so bad that it was just laughable, because his whole argument for having unwarranted searches and seizures and such, violations of the Fourth Amendment, was, well, I was an attorney, a federal attorney appointed by Bush, that's important, during the 9/11 attacks. And so I have a unique perspective on 9/11 and counterterrorism, and we've used these Fourth Amendment violating efforts many times in order to get people's information and in order to arrest supposed terrorists, or I can't remember what the word they use is, potential terrorists or something like that. So that's his whole argument. And Rand Paul was like, well, what about the Fourth Amendment, though? And Chris Christie had no real argument for that either. He just says, well, 9/11, I was there, crying families and such and such. It's like, what relevance does that have, really, when we're talking about the Fourth Amendment? That has no relevance whatsoever, what your personal experience is when dealing with counterterrorism, because the Fourth Amendment is the Fourth Amendment. Well, you think that the founding fathers didn't foresee that there might be some cause for something like this, where there be a massive violation of the Fourth Amendment on the side of the government? You think they never foresaw that? It's ridiculous. It's no way to think, really, for an attorney, especially a federal attorney. You'd think that he would have a better understanding of the law and how the Constitution works. Or maybe you wouldn't, because there's no reason to expect that out of a federal attorney. So, point taken. Still, though, I thought that whole deal was funny, and it's just so ridiculous to me that you have people who are running for president. This guy wants to be president, and he doesn't seem to understand or care to understand or just care at all about how the Fourth Amendment works. And that's something that's just so astounding to me. This guy does not care, and I don't think Rand Paul is the best candidate either. You know, well, actually, maybe out of all the zillions of Republican candidates, maybe Rand Paul actually is the best, but he doesn't have my vote anyway. It's so outstandingly bad who's running for president right now that it really is indicative of the state that we're in. Really, when it comes right down to it, like on a national level, it's indicative of the dire straits we're in, where you have these guys running for president. I mean, for heaven's sake, you have Donald Trump running for president, man. How can he take this whole thing seriously when he's actually gaining traction? It's just ridiculous. And so the whole thing is just, it's out the window, man. Like the whole presidential election is just out the window. Who cares? At this point, who cares who wins? Because it's all just so ridiculous. But of course, we have candidates who don't understand the Fourth Amendment. We have candidates who probably don't care about the First Amendment either. You have maybe one or two candidates who possibly might care about the Second Amendment, maybe. And you have one candidate who likes to at least stand on the concept of the Constitution, but possibly doesn't understand some of the broader implications of it. And it's all a mess. The presidential election is just all a mess. And so as it is right now, there's not going to be any sort of oversight, right? Like, what do you think? Somebody's going to, because the NSA has been found to be acting illegally with the mass data collection, you think somebody's actually seriously going to be going to the NSA and arresting the head of the NSA, the chief chairman or whatever they call it, the Mao Zedong guy who's in the NSA, and he's going to arrest him, and he's going to arrest all the guys who are under him? I really kind of doubt that. That doesn't seem very likely. So in the tech world, we have a lot to worry about when it comes to our own security, not from hackers so much, although that is a big problem. We have a lot to worry about from the NSA. We have a lot to worry about when it comes to the government, because the government is acting illegally. The government is being criminal now. We have a criminal government that's been infiltrating our data for years and years and years. And that's something that has to be worried about. That's the chief thing that needs to be worried about. Not so much the Chinese hackers and not so much the Russian hackers who want to get or Ashley Madison information or whatever. I'm not nearly as worried about that as I am about the NSA. This is Digital Drive right here on Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio on hotnewstalkradio.com. You can also download the TuneIn Radio app and then search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is also on Twitter, where you report the world decides. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio is saving you money. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And of course, don't forget that there's a march for Lieutenant Commander Timothy White on September the 2nd, which is a Wednesday at noon in front of the Solomon Building downtown. So be sure to go to that. That's a march in support of Lieutenant Commander Timothy White. It's going to be a march there September the 2nd, which is a Wednesday at noon in front of the Solomon Building downtown.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.